Well, it's 7 o'clock. It's time for the Acton Select Board October 2nd meeting. We require a quorum of five. We have a 5-member board, so our quorum is 3. 3 of us are here in person, and one of us, Alyssa Nickel, will be participating remotely due to a geographic distance greater than 20 miles via video conference. And a roll call vote's required for any and all votes involving members participating remotely. And if I was reading this entire notification, I would also note that this is all being done under the auspices of 940 CMR 29.10 parentheses 5. We always start our meetings hearing from residents that have concerns. It's really important that we hear from residents. It's also important we get through our agenda, so we'll have a limit of 3 minutes per participant. Is there anybody in the room or remote that'd like to say something as part of resident concerns? Come on up. Why don't you say who you are, press the little red button there. There you go.
Yeah, good evening, and it's nice to meet the Select Board. My name is Srinivas Anantha. I'm a resident of 47 Canterbury Hill Road in Acton. It's a community of 90 homes, so it's one of the largest developments in Acton. One of the concerns that I want to talk about is we have an RM playground in our neighborhood, and this playground is being maintained by the town. And I have been talking to the Acton Recreation Department for nearly 5 years now. There is a water fountain that's been broken for 6-7 years, since I moved into the neighborhood. And I've told them, hey, this is something that needs to be fixed because a lot of the younger kids that are part of the neighborhood use it, and if they need water, they always have to run back home rather than using it. Plus, there are kids from outside of the neighborhood that also come into there and play. During summer, it's especially a very busy time there. And the last time I heard was once they said, hey, we don't have adequate budget, so we will address in the next fiscal year. I said, that's perfectly fine. I sent a reminder the next fiscal year. They said, hey, we've sent a plumber. It's beyond repair, broken, so we have to get a new one. Please let us know what we can do. He said, no, it's now with the Acton town manager for the budget to get approval. And I again sent a reminder 2 months ago. I have no reply. So this is something I'm not even sure why it cannot be done, repaired. This is not that big of an expense. And I've also given options to the recreation department saying, this playground is never adequately maintained by the recreation department or the town of Acton. The ground itself there is very poorly maintained. It does not have any drainage. For example, this particular year when we had a lot of water, even today when you go to it, it's just like very wet. And nobody bothers to do anything with it. And I bring this to the attention of the recreation department. They said we will address it, but nobody comes and does anything. The other part is there's so much trash left by kids who come outside, and even they do have this, I think K-12 dog training once a week that's done there. The dog poop is just left there. Nobody comes and cleans it. And I have told this numerous times, hey, this is something that please need to address. Then there are also few folks that are from the outside of the neighborhood that come out, hang out in the RM playground late in the night. And sometimes when we walk, we see people leaving beer bottles there, beer cans left. And I'm sorry to say this, but even condoms are left there. And when we have kids there that are less than 10 years, they're coming and playing, this is just a very bad look. And I'm trying to find a solution for this. What is the best way? And I've given options to the recreation department. Hey, we are 90 homes here. What is the revenue that you guys generate from this particular renting out? Because their purpose is, hey, we want to rent this, generate some revenue. And I said, whatever revenue you generate, I am more than willing to give you guys that on an annual basis. But please don't rent it out anywhere else. That way we avoid these problems. But they don't even want to. That way we will take care of the maintenance. The town doesn't have to worry about it. The recreation department doesn't have to worry about it. But they don't even want to give us this option. So I have no choice, but I thought I'll come and talk to you guys. In fact, Sahana Purohit, who you guys all know, she said, hey, it's better you go to the select board and talk to them. As you guys know, she's also a resident of that particular community. So I'm just still thinking what is the best solution for this to be addressed. We are more than happy to take up the maintenance as long as it's not rented out to third-party folks. At the same time, people are willing, if they want to walk in the neighborhood, use it for other things, they're more than welcome to do it. But please just rent it out. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. And I hope that, you're making this visible here will help us advance this issue. And I'll make sure to be in touch. David?
Could I just ask that you send your comments to the select board? So sb@actonmad.gov?
I will do that, yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you again for your time.
Is there anybody in the audience that, in the online Zoom audience that has a comment? No? Okay. Okay, the next part of the agenda is called Chair Update, Town Manager Update, and Member Minute. So I should note that there won't be a Town Manager Update tonight because Mr. John Mangiarotti is not here. He's attending a meeting of the International City Managers Association and can't join us tonight. Also, you'll notice that Mr. Dean Charter is not here yet. He's driving back from a conference in Maine. I expect he'll be here well before the end of the meeting. Got a couple other updates. We had a formal ceremony for the opening of Gardner Field in West Acton last Friday. That's the new play area in the only town-owned green space in the heart of West Acton. It was great to see the project coming together. I've seen many families playing there every time I go by. It's a great success, made possible in part by our support of the community preservation funds and ARPA funds, and money from our state and federal partners, and from the hard work of the Friends of Gardner Field. It was a soggy ceremony, and by the end it became clear, the word got out that the grass was getting too soaked to support the scheduled Oktoberfest the next day. That festival is now scheduled for Saturday, October 14. I think the only remaining logistical hurdle is a one-day liquor license, and so that is now a new item on our consent calendar today. On Wednesday afternoon, those of you using cell phones, TVs, or radios will receive a test alert from the Federal Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. The message will explain that no action is required and that this was just a test. If you're looking for more of a dialogue than the resident concerns agenda allows, one option is to drop by the library, first floor atrium, Sunday, October 8th, anytime between 3 and 4. I'll be having my first open hours at that time. Next Monday, October 9th, is the federal Columbus Day holiday. The Acton Select Board has voted that in Acton, that day will be Indigenous Peoples' Day. As a reminder, we are planning agenda time and public information forums in the next 12 months before voting on making this a permanent change. And we're also beginning a dialogue with local Indigenous leaders about how to approach this change. Finally, at the end of the regular session tonight, we will go into executive session. That will mean locking the Zoom meeting and having every meeting observer leave the room. Thanks in advance for your understanding and cooperation. So normally, my entire reflex is built towards tossing it over to John for a manager update, but I'll resist that and ask if any members have updates. No?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Anything for you, Fran?
I just wanted to mention that tomorrow evening, the Select Board, will be joining the South Acton Vision and Plan Open House at the library in the meeting room from 6 to 8. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks so much. Alyssa?
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick items. The first is just to mention that the open meeting law and public records training that was provided by town council was held on September 19th, and the recording is available on ActonTV's channel. And I know that the planning board and the land stewardship committee had meetings that night, and possibly other board and committee volunteers were not able to attend, so I encourage everybody to watch that video if they have a chance. The health department has COVID rapid tests available right on the counter in the health department at Town Hall. So feel free to come by and get those if you need them. At the Memorial Library trustee meeting last Thursday, the director announced that some items that had been on loan from the museum and the library have recently been returned to the library. And I don't believe that they are out on display yet, but they should be very, very soon. And we're excited to have those items back in time for the 250th celebration. And just to follow up on, Jim, your announcement of Indigenous Peoples Day Monday, there is a fabulous event from 11 to 5 on Monday, October 9th, Indigenous Peoples Day in Newton at the Albemarle Field. I attended last year and planning to attend again this year, and I invite anybody who would like to find out more and celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day to go to that event.
Thanks so much. Now I'm going to announce a public hearing, and I'm going to find the little piece of paper that Lisa got me that has all the right things for me to say. Here it is. And is Chris Cosby online? Yes. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on October 2nd at Town Hall, right here, for NSTAR Electric Company, doing business as Eversource Energy, for an installation of one HIP guy at pole number 16/2, northeasterly side, approximately 197 feet, more or less feet northwest of Arlington Street, by 3234 Elm Street. Chris, if you're online, I'd welcome here, and you could tell us about this. And most importantly, you could tell us what a HIP guy is, because if you do an internet search for HIP guy, you don't find anything out about telephone poles.
You'll need to unmute Christine, which is, I think, *6. Yes.
Thank you for that. This is Christine Cosby from Eversource, and yes, we're looking to install a HIP guy at pole 16/2 at Elm Street, and the purpose of the HIP guy would be to provide support to the pole. Currently, the pole is being supported by a tree guy, which is a guy wire that's attached to the tree in front of the house that's number 32. And the tree's rotted. The tree is going to come down, so we have to take the tree guy out. But that pole needs support. So in order to do that, the HIP guy is necessary. And the HIP guy is it's a guy wire that goes from the top of the pole, and it's anchored into the ground. But there's also like a steel rod that is behind the pole that the guy wire is attached to, and the purpose of that is that so you can cut the grass or snow blow, and you can walk under it. Our normal anchor guys are anchored diagonally, but a HIP guy is purposely done that way that it's you can walk under, you can walk around it and work around it.
Thank you. Let me just say it back to you to make sure I got it. A HIP guy starts with a vertical part in the ground so that people can walk around it or do lawn maintenance there without tripping over a wire. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. Okay. It could be that there are select board members that have questions about this. No? No? Alyssa, any questions or concerns? Okay, any questions or concerns from the audience? Anyone online with their hand raised? No. I would happily entertain a notion to accept the installation of this one hip guy at pole 16.2. David's got a motion.
I move that we approve the request by Eversource to install a hip guy wire infrastructure at pole 16/2 at 32 to 34 Elm Street.
There a second out there?
Second?
Okay, thanks, Alyssa. That's a motion. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? No. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Nope. Oh, yes, of course it does. And that would normally be done by the clerk, who's not here at this very instant. So I will call the roll. See, I'm out of practice here. Alyssa?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Fran?
Aye.
I also say aye. That's unanimous. So Chris Cosby, go out and put up a hip guy. You're all set.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, the next agenda item is called number 4, discuss committee support and volunteer recruitment. And there was some material in the packet about this to get, this is just an initial discussion to get some ideas flowing, to hear from select board members and from anyone in the audience that'd like to say something. Let me just briefly give you an overview of what I wrote. So there's a lot of reasons for wanting clear two-way communication between all our boards and the select board. Here's a few. We need to know which committees most urgently need new members so that we can all be on the lookout for potential recruits. We can troubleshoot if committees have become less effective. We can find out if committees are working on the same topic, and we can help them from working at cross purposes, or we can help them even cooperate to do even better work. We can get an early handle on any potential select board agenda items or town meeting warrant articles that are emerging. And just in general, helping committees meet their goals. Most of them are there, except for the statutory ones. Most of them are there as advisory committees. So they're out there doing the work and gathering the information and doing the discussion on issues that we as a select board need to hear about. So good information is good. We've tried doing this in various ways in the past years. Here's some ideas that have either been tried or could be used in the future. We could have a standing agenda item to hear from a committee or two and just rotate through all the committees. And as a reminder, there's about 50 boards and committees. In the past, there's been a special event where the chairs of committees meet with a select board member or more than one select board member and just share brief updates about, what their goals are, what they're working on, what their challenges are, and then encourage, cross communication along those lines. There could be regular written or spoken reports from liaisons to the rest of the board about their assigned committees and boards. That's sort of the one we're doing currently. We have this member minute. It's sometimes used for updates from boards and committees. And the other one that we are also doing by default is waiting until committees or their staff or liaisons bring issues to the attention of the chair or town manager. And part of this topic is the whole question of recruiting members and retaining members. We've tried things like short recruiting videos. I don't know if you remember, what was it that Charlie Aronson did? He was dressed like a superhero, and he flew across the screen. It was very exciting. Workshops. Some towns have workshops on civic engagement, targeted at people and groups that might be interested in helping out but aren't doing that now. Articles in local print media, and a lot of other ideas. And I'd love to hear from board members of their thoughts on what can help in that particular area as well. There might be select board members that are particularly called to work on this issue between meetings. I'd love to know that, so that we maybe establish a little, group of one or two of us to work on this. And also, I'm curious to hear from the public after we've heard individually. So, thoughts from y'all about this? David?
So I just wanted to clarify, because you didn't mention it. It's my impression anyway that the communication between various committees and their liaisons is usually quite good. There seems to be, in meetings that I attend, either ones where I'm the liaison or where I attend ones where another member is a liaison, there seems to be a good interaction there, good back and forth. As you pointed out, Jim, I think the lack of communication comes in a couple of other areas, maybe broader knowledge by the rest of this board, and maybe broader knowledge in the community, including other committees. I think this is just my personal preference. I think it's hard to force a cadence to that, but I think that the liaison should encourage various committees to present to the board whenever they feel that they've reached any kind of important milestone. And the milestone could even be a question rather than an answer, right? Where they're soliciting broader input. And the reason I say that is I think a presentation at this meeting gets a certain amount of attention in the community, right? It's recorded and available on ActonTV. A pretty good sized audience attends usually. And so I think that's the, to me, that would be the best solution. But that's just me.
Thank you so much, David. Fran? Any thoughts on recruitment or on communications?
I love the list that you compiled. I would love to see the committee handbook updated. I think that is an important task, and I'm more than happy to take that on. And I mean, I know that we have 50 boards and committees, but to have them maybe come to the select board and, just explain what the committee does, and I think is valuable information. It can help citizens decide whether they want to join a committee or not. I do like the idea of videos. I know that some of the chairs that I have dealt with did not want to do a video. I think they're valuable. You can get the kind of the feel of the committee that you're joining. I just think there are so many volunteers that we can unleash in town. So.
Thanks. Alyssa, thoughts on communication or recruitment?
I do have so many, thank you. So first of all, I wanted to remind the board and anyone who attended the select board goal-setting workshop that this is something that I had proposed as a short-term goal with some of the items in your list, like updating the volunteer handbook and improving the onboarding process. And it did not receive enough votes to make the cut. So I appreciate this because this is something that was very important to me. But I just want to remind everyone that we had other goals that ranked higher than this one. So I want to be mindful of staff time or funding that might be proposed to be spent, like on a consultant I think I saw on the list to help us with this work. So we just need to be mindful that it didn't make the cut. I'm definitely planning to bring it back next year. I think it's valuable information to find out how volunteers were recruited. So a survey that can just go out to all boards and committees asking them to reply with a couple of sentences about how they got their start, because I think that would help guide us to repeating those same recruitment efforts that got people to sign up for these volunteer jobs in the first place. I definitely support the special meeting of committee chairs to learn about what one another is working on to prevent working, what's the phrase, at crosshairs? Or finding out how they can collaborate, especially if it's in support of a select board short-term or long-term goal. I'm a little concerned, I like David's idea about having boards come and present when they've reached a milestone, but having a standing agenda item I'm concerned with, because my understanding is that this liaison assignment for the 5 board members was to replace that because it was taking up so much time. So what I'd like all of us to do is during the member minutes, provide some more updates on what the boards are working on or decisions that they've been making. And I've been trying very hard to model that. What I usually do ahead of a select board meeting is I go back and review my notes that I took at the committee meetings that I attended as a liaison, and just if there's anything that I think that the public or the board would be interested in hearing, I try and jot that down without making my minute 5 minutes. I don't support waiting until there's an issue. I don't think that's a good idea ever in life. I noticed that the volunteer coordinating committee had partnered with ActonTV to make those recruitment videos, but it's really hard to find them on the website, so we might want to consider having each video on that committee's page, because I had a really difficult time locating them. I'm definitely interested in being part of a working group if it's just involved board members working, since it didn't, reach high enough in our goals to justify staff and funding. I don't know how much staff time would be required for updating the volunteer handbook and whether or not it would require town council review and how much that would cost. So that's a question that we should have answered. And then I had one more idea that select board members could, or committee members of any committee that's in need of additional volunteers could attend fairs and festivals and do tabling. In fact, I was wondering why we weren't at the volunteer and community resource fair that happened today at the administration building on Charter Road that was sponsored by the Acton Boxborough Resource Center. It would have been great to have a table there for people to learn how to get involved in volunteering. And the farmers market is another great place. Earlier today, we had a Green Acton Water Committee leadership meeting to plan our next agenda, and Kim Castens reported that she had spoken with quite a few people who were very interested in joining the committee just because they were there at the farmers market tabling. So I think that that would be potentially a great way to connect with new people in town, young people in town who might not know a lot about it, but might have, great expertise in some area or another. And I think that might be all that I wrote down so far.
Thanks so much. It could be that there's now we've heard each other. There could, so there could be another round of comments about, people responding to what each other said. David.
Yes, I think Alyssa's point on that some of us, I would put me in that bucket, maybe could use our member minutes a little bit more effectively to go over, high points of meetings, in the past, in the 2 weeks that precede one of these meetings. So I'll try to do a better job at that. And then one of the things I didn't discuss in my original thing was recruitment. And one of the things that you mentioned, Jim, which I don't know exactly what you were thinking of, but I think an annual or something recruitment workshop might be a good idea. I find that, first of all, for many people who are just, find themselves maybe they reach a point in their lives, or something that would they have some time or want to, invest some time in the community. They may not know where to get started, and they're not even, it's very difficult. I mean, you can go to the website and find the list, but it's very difficult to know what each committee really does and why it exists. And even what the difference is between a statutory committee and an advisory committee, and their base purposes. So I was thinking that, if we had a recruitment workshop of some kind, we could, go over the committees and what they're supposed to do, and then just allow people to ask questions and encourage the chairs of the committees to be there, to be able to answer questions. And if the chairs couldn't be there, I'm sure that the liaisons could answer the questions.
And additional thoughts?
I love the idea of the annual recruitment workshop. I think that is, would that be something that we would do, or would that be VCC, or, just curious. Sorry.
David has a thought on that.
I just think at least it would, if we're planning to attend, it would have to be a select board meeting.
Yeah,
But it
yeah.
would probably, I wouldn't think it would be one of these meetings. It was be scheduled on another night. And it could be led by the VCC, right? And we're just there. I mean, that's something we'd have to put together. And I agree with Alyssa that it's something that the board should put together, since it wasn't, in one of the staff goals for the year.
Alyssa?
Thank you. So I wonder if we could start with tabling at existing events and then work up to include this in next year's select board goals. Only because I feel like organizing an annual workshop would require a lot of staff time. Or if instead we assigned this task to the volunteer coordinating committee, I feel that might not be really welcome, given their existing workload. So maybe we could start small, and then ramp up to a larger workshop. I guess another thing that I worry about with the annual workshop being focused on recruiting, you have to make sure that people who are looking for something to do because they're getting ready to retire, or they want to give back to the community, making sure that those people hear about it is going to be a challenge, right? Because it's people who are paying attention already who are more likely to hear about it. And so I feel like going to a festival or another event where we could do tabling, then we're just going to run into people who they didn't even know they were looking for us.
Thanks. Before I hear from the public, I want to hear from the public now, because I'm beginning to develop some summary of what I've heard that I think people are agreeing on, but let's add in any extra input before I try to do that. Is there anyone online who has a hand raised? Okay. Why don't we hear from, can we bring in that one person whose hand was raised? Is Matt here to let people in? Okay. Hi, Matt Frost. Can you let our one person talk?
Yep, I'm working on it now. Just a moment here. Colin User, you should be able to speak.
Hi, it's Tara. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I love this conversation. This is wonderful. It's one of my great dreams, is to have more representation, more people, different types of people. And So I agree with almost everything I've heard. And I would like to also state that it's my experience when I go to just some random meeting and the people on the boards and committees, when I ask, have you talked to the select board? Have you submitted this information to the select board? Have you met with the select board lately? Too often, I feel the response is, well, we wait until they tell us that they need to hear from us. And I said, well, you guys are talking about important stuff. Don't you want to tell them? And that the liaisons often don't seem to either be up on the issues or don't bring the issues forward. I don't really know what the solution is, but I just want to say that I very often find that the committees don't feel like they can get on the agenda for XYZ issue, and that they have to ask their liaison, and the liaison is busy, and then they have to re-ask the liaison because it didn't happen. And so I wonder if there's a way to have the boards and committees feel welcome to ask the chair of the select board to put the item XYZ item on the agenda if their liaison hasn't done it because the liaison's either busy or, I don't want to point names or anything, but I've actually heard of liaisons not wanting to put the agenda on because politically they don't agree with the item or the position of the committee. So I would like very much for there to be like an open door to the select board's agenda for any committee, any group of people, frankly, that feel like they want to come talk to you all about their issues. Thank you.
Thank you much.
And the thing is the what do you call it? The Oktoberfest. You could probably get a table there still. Thanks.
Thanks. Alyssa?
Thanks. I really appreciate that comment. I think it ties back to what David mentioned earlier, encouraging the liaisons to encourage the committees to present to the board. And perhaps a way to do that is to create a liaison responsibility list so that anybody coming onto the select board, getting a new liaison assignment, will understand the parameters of those responsibilities. I know as a new board member, I'm often at meetings really having this internal debate with myself about whether or not I raise my hand and make a suggestion. I don't have any problem asking questions for information, but I don't want to pretend that I'm a member of the committee, except when I am, like with the Health Insurance Trust. I need to be really careful about making clear that I'm not representing the board if I share an opinion that's my own, because the select board is a body of 5. So maybe a simple one-page document that outlines liaison responsibilities that's available on the select board page, and it's clearly stated that liaisons are to encourage boards and committees to present to the select board, then anybody who's a volunteer will see that document and understand that if they aren't being invited, that they can invite themselves.
Got it. Thank you. Hi, come on up, talk to us. You can sit there, you can stand at the podium, whatever you want, and then you can press the little button and then everyone can hear you.
Hi, Jim knows me. My name is Fang Yang. I'm one of the 3 members of the VCC. And today I come here, I haven't talked to anybody else in our VCC, so it's just represent myself. So I'm glad to answer the question you have, but it's pretty good idea to answer where they hear the volunteer opportunities, and also a good idea, I think, to have some kind of annual workshop or whatever the workshop periodically we have. But by the way, by next June, I'll complete my 2nd term in the VCC, and the other 2 members, Hart and Greg, they serve longer than me. So, and also we only have 3 people in the committee And suppose we need 5. And originally we need 7, but since we only have 3, so we reduce that to 5 in order to have a quorum. So in the previously, we normally have the flyers for volunteer opportunity at the town meeting and the school committee meeting when there are a lot of people. We haven't done other things except what Lisa said about ActonTV. But that's a relatively new thing. So if you have any question, you can ask me if I can answer.
Yeah, who in the past has prepared the handouts for town meeting with volunteer opportunities on it?
Oh, normally is whoever the chair collect the information about which committee need people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Greg knows where to get those information. I mean, we have so many committees there, so we just print it out, introduce all the committees, probably 1 or 2 pages.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, because I can see one of the ideas we've heard about tonight is, doing more events, tabling events like at the farmer's market where a select board member or someone could, if they had a page that had the current volunteer opportunities and maybe a way of, maybe at least a sentence on each committee that described what it was, that'd be a great prerequisite for going out and doing more tabling. So it's good to know that Greg has the, now I'm remembering, yes, there is this spreadsheet that the town clerk provides to the VCC with the current volunteer listings and, who's on the committee and how many openings there are. So that's a great source for preparing a document.
The last time we did it, I think it's before the COVID.
Yeah, it's been a few years
Since
we've
COVID,
done
we haven't done anything like that.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good to know. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions from the select board for our VCC rep here? Alyssa?
Thanks. Thank you for coming and sharing those thoughts with us. I'm just wondering if the VCC has data from interviews about where people have heard about volunteer opportunities. Is there a spreadsheet, or do you just take notes
I think
on each individual?
Okay, this is a very good idea. We never ask, we always ask where they heard from, but we didn't write it down normally. What we write down is why they want to join the committee. So I'm the clerk, so I know everything, basically. My impression is most of the people actually from the existing board member or the town staffs, like the land stewardship committee, normally they work somewhere, then they see either Bettina or other land stewardship committee members. Same to most of other committees. But recently we got a person, actually, he saw the posting, for the public facility building committee. He actually saw from the town website. And I think you guys probably already got my recommendation for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do remember reading that. Mr. Chair, can I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
So I wonder if maybe we can start collecting that data on a spreadsheet. And I mean, the VCC went during interviews. And I'm also wondering, is volunteering part of the municipal monthly on a regular basis? I feel like it is.
Can you repeat your last sentence?
I feel like in the municipal monthly, there's usually a note about volunteering and maybe some committees that are listed. But if it's not, then municipal monthly or the property tax bill can be, in addition to the town meeting warrant, a place where we can put a call out for volunteers. I just feel like those tabling events are going to be more effective, because imagine that somebody comes to the Kelly's Corner block party and we're recruiting for the Economic Development Committee at that event. You're going to target people who are interested in that. Or the climate action plan, you would target people who might be interested in the Green Advisory Board.
Yes, firstly, when you mentioned that where they heard from, I already thinking we should recorded that down. Absolutely, I agree with you. So we will do that in the future. I mean, from today, basically. And the other one is, I think we used to introduce one or two of the new committee member on the town's, the newsletter thing, but never did the advertisement kind of thing. So if you want them to do the advertisement of a committee vacancy, then I guess you have to talk to the town people, right?
Yeah, I think that those highlights of new committee members accomplish the same thing, because it lets people know, it puts a face to the committee and describes what the committee does.
Yeah, they do sometimes put the new membership introduction.
Great, that's great to know. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it. So there's a lot of follow-up items, potential follow-up items here. And let me see if I can summarize things that I think I heard general agreement on and just sort of take a look around, see if I see thumbs up on these particular ideas. One would be that each of us as select board members, think consciously before each meeting about, what are the updates from my committees that I might want to put into my member minute? So a little bit more focus on actually hearing from boards and committees in our member minutes. Is that something that people feel okay about? I'm seeing nods, and Alyssa, this was already your idea, and I'm fine with that too. On a side point, David started with the notion that that we have pretty good communication between liaisons and committees. For me, that's sometimes true and sometimes not true, because I have some committees that tend to meet on Monday nights. So I haven't been at their meetings for a while. So a personal note for me is to, check in with committee chairs, read the minutes, make sure I'm up to date on those committees. I haven't been as consistent on that as I'd like to be. The other idea that I heard some support for was, being at events where there are people, where we can have, talk to people one-on-one about committees that need people. Hey, and I just want to note that Dean Shart, our select board member, has come in the door and is sitting down. Welcome back, Dean.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're on agenda item 4. So the other thing I heard generally was that wouldn't it be great if we could occasionally do some of these public events? Is that a general, are people okay with that as a general idea? Melissa, what do you think? I'm not sure, wasn't sure if that was a positive idea in your head.
Yeah, I suggested it.
Okay, I thought so, but just wanted to close that little loop there. And David?
Yeah, I think what I heard here was that we might start off small with tables at other events and maybe eventually reach, maybe next year, an annual workshop or something.
Yeah, these would be good sort of market research opportunities, chances to talk to people about committees, and we'll learn things like, why people are not choosing to be on committees or why they are. The other thing I heard general agreement about was finding out more from existing committee members, how it is that they found out. And that could be something as simple as a, very short questionnaire that goes out to, all boards and committees with some easy way of people, typing in a sentence or checking a box or something. To make that happen would require having at least one select board member willing to, draft that question and work on the mechanics of how we get answers, whether that's a form or what. And that would require some cooperation with staff to figure that out. So if we think that's and also we already got action from at least one member of the VCC about recording this information. And since that member was the clerk, we have a high degree of confidence that that's going to start happening, which is great. But to find out about existing members, is there a member here that would be interested in working on, the very short list of 1 or 2 questions that we would like to ask committee members? Okay, Fran and Alyssa are both raising their hand, which is awesome. Are you okay both working on it? Can you work together on it?
I guess so.
Yay. Okay, thank you.
I would love to work with Fran on this.
Yay.
Then you'll come to the Oktoberfest at our table.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that it got rescheduled.
Okay.
Because I was in the Denver airport yesterday.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
David.
You can only assign one person without establishing a subcommittee. So
Yes.
you should assign one, and if that one person wants to talk to one other member, they can do that.
Yes, that's the magic, you're right. So the magic recipe is one person's responsible. They could choose to reach out to one other select board member to work on it, but we're not going to authorize 2 at once. So which of you wants to be the official authorizee of working on this question?
Either one. I'm happy to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
Fran, you're it.
Can I just ask, who's the right staff person to reach out to find out if we have a survey monkey? Would that be the town manager or?
I would always start with the town manager. Yeah,
Okay.
he can point you in the right way.
That's what I was going to say. The town does have a Survey Monkey license.
Great. The other small item that I heard that I would be willing to take on is to get those old but still amusing and sometimes compelling short videos about each committee on the committee page, on the committee pages. There's not every committee has those videos, but the ones that are there that we've already done can go there. I'm happy to take that on. There's a future agenda item we can talk about later, which is, do we want to, perhaps in cooperation with the VCC, especially if we find them a couple more members, do we want to work with them on having more videos created or not? But that's a bigger question for another day. Go ahead, David.
Also, along the same lines of what you just said, we could also have, as a standard element of each committee page, do you want to join this committee paragraph, which may quickly describe what the committee does, who you might call to find out more information, like if you have questions about the committee or whatever. I mean, that's more effort. But that's something that might be done, maybe next year or something if this is a priority. Because I'm thinking that if people are navigating the website, they might go to the committee's page, and I think it might not always say, or it might not be clear from the charge in some ways, which is often wordy, exactly what the committee does.
Thanks. Yeah, another idea for the next time we revisit this. So Dean, you got in the middle of this discussion. It could be that you have some thoughts about improving communications between the select board and our various 50 committees, or you have thoughts about the process of recruitment. You saw the memo that I wrote that had some starting ideas. Wondering what you're thinking.
Well, obviously I missed most of the discussion. One thing I noted early on in your original memo was discussion about trying to upgrade our volunteer informational packet. And hopefully that's been captured. I think that's really important because there's a lot of rumors and innuendos go around about what it's like to serve on these committees. So a lot of conflicting information, not only about getting on the committees, but then even how the committee members participate. a lot of the changes for the wording, what sort of a preamble we have to read at the beginning, at the meeting. And of course, that keeps changing with all the COVID restrictions. So I think updating that, if you haven't addressed it already, I think that would be the number one priority that I would see.
Well, that makes for a natural segue to, we did hear from a couple of people that updating the relatively ancient volunteer handbook might be a good idea. There was a question about how much work that would take. There was a concern that it might take, staff time, legal time, and that because it didn't quite reach our level of short-term goals for this year, it was suggested as a goal, but didn't quite make the vote, that we might need to prepare for that, but then not really get into the meat of it until next year. I'm seeing some nods from you, but is that your sense? It's important, but at the same time, maybe we don't know how to proceed in a big way on that yet.
Well, I think, for myself and maybe other members of the board, in the interim, we should dig out a copy of that handbook, read through it, and, I personally, I'd start to make some marginal notes in red pen and might be better prepared for next year on it. So I think, that's a good start, and certainly we might hear some anecdotes from other committee members that, problems they've had, so since they know this discussion is going on.
David?
Yeah, as a parallel track and something that we might be able to accomplish this year, earlier it was suggested that we might have a liaison responsibility sheet. That's probably not a very long document, and that's something that one of us could do. And even, one of the things that you mentioned, Jim, could be on that sheet so that if you have meeting conflicts and can't regularly attend the meeting, to maybe set up something, a phone call or something with the chair to make sure you are abreast. Personally, I am not in favor of end runs around the liaison. I think it's we all expect the liaisons from this board to be up on all the committees that we're responsible for, and I think it's be too confusing to have multiple paths. But I do think that that to have the clear responsibilities would be good. Maybe one of us could draft something and then and present it at a future meeting.
Is there a one of us among the four of us, the five of us, that would be interested in attempting to draft a liaison responsibility list? Ooh, David.
I would try.
Okay, we can gently review it after you're done. Thank you. Yes, Alyssa.
Thank you. David, could you just repeat, because the audio was a little fuzzy for me, what it is that you're not in support of?
Oh, I'm not in support. The person who remarked here talked about going, for example, to the chair of the board if instead of the liaison, if they didn't want to work through the liaison. I don't think that's a good idea. I think we count on the liaisons as being up to date with the state of their committees. I also think the liaisons provide quite a valuable service in preparing a committee to come in front of the board, like what questions they're likely to get when they're in this public forum and things like that. And so the only thing I'm not in favor of is to have a path that circumvents the liaison. If someone thinks that
from a committee or board member, you mean?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Thanks.
I mean, I suppose if a chair thought the liaison was not doing their job or something, that they could go to the chair, but that's fine. But I don't think we should have a regular path around the liaison. I know that I think when we have discussions up here and, about a particular topic, we often turn to the liaison of a committee when we're talking about that subject area, and we expect that person to be up to date on the, at least what the committee's been doing in a general way.
Just looking at my little notes here, see what else I would offer as a summary. No, I think that's a great start. I'll look over this list and also happy to have further input from board members or members of the public. You know, one of those committees that I'm overdue visiting is the VCC, so I'll come by. We can talk about this stuff more too. Dean, I think the only big thing that you missed that we took on while you weren't here was that we all agreed that it would be a good idea for us to, as we plan our member minutes, to, you know, think consciously about all the committees we're on and see if there are, you know, updates to be brought forward. That we noted that, you know, sometimes we're not using much of the member minutes for actually hearing from committees and boards, and that's our prime time to do that. So it'd be good to focus on that a little bit. Thanks, everyone. That was great. Okay, our next agenda item, number 5, is to review proposed conservation restriction for Spring Hill Farm, 328 Pope Road. This item changed kind of quickly in the packet today, so I just want to make sure people were up to date on what's going on there. And then we can hear from, hey, the people that are offering this fabulous CR and who are at the same time members of the organization that would be accepting the CR. So you two are hopefully filled with knowledge that's going to help us understand this. But as a brief introduction, I'll just say, just remind the board that conservation restrictions work differently in Massachusetts than they do in other states. There's a requirement for a sign-off for any conservation restriction to be signed off by the state. There's a state process and there's a local process. So even though the select board is not a party to this conservation restriction in the sense of we're not granting it or receiving it, we will be required to sign it. And our standard for signing it is for us to say, based on some research and conversation, we believe that this thing is a benefit to the conservation values for the town, that it provides an actual benefit to you know, the values that we're trying to conserve in town. We briefly had a draft CR, and then we had what looks to be a final version of the CR. Or at least as final gets, because there's still some other, you know, the state might have comments and we might have comments. So we may be ready, after we hear about it, to have an affirmative vote about supporting this, or we may want to wait for, you know, questions that people ask that we don't have answers for yet. But that having been said, is there any chance that Mike Gendron is on the call? Because we had a wonderful memo from Mike affirming you know, from a staff point of view, the value of the CR. Okay, that's fine. It's in our packet, so we can see it. Similarly, we had an older memo from Tom Tidman, who also was talking about the positive values there in the meadow up on Pope Road. But if there's not any more preliminary questions or thoughts, I would invite. I invite the Mitchell Harts to come up here and tell us a little bit more. Hey, guys. One of you want to tell us a little bit more about the CR? Oh, yay, we got both of you. Hi, David. Hi, Susan. Okay. For those out in the audience, you can introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about this CR.
Well, thank you. So just a point of clarification, the difference between the draft and what you have now was me realizing that the PDF I had sent Mike had inadvertently included editorial comments on the side from our attorney, and I removed those. So the verbiage is the same. So this is a conservation restriction to preserve about a 2.5 acre parcel to the rear of our property, which has development potential. And as I think it's described both in Tom's and I haven't seen Mike's note, but I did see Tom's from several years ago. In a small property like that, it combines uplands, the shore of a pond, wetlands, an intermittent stream, mixed hardwoods, some pines, and despite our best efforts, a good load of invasives that we work on all the time. It is the last remnant of a colonial farm. We still live in the house that farm was part of, or that farm began with, 1745 to be exact, when the land was purchased. It has been used by us as a horse farm up until about 10 years ago. So it was an agricultural use. The property that is basically would be divided in half, with the front half, the Pope Road side, being the house, the barn, and the land around that, and then the back half, which is the horse pasture, woodlands, wetlands, rock fields, other everything you can find in a small patch of New England land. It is adjacent to Camp Acton and through that to the Spring Hill Conservation Area. And that's basically the description of, and we're doing it to preserve the land, to preserve the history, and to preserve the streetscape. Yes, she's reminding me, scenic and historic.
Thanks so much. There might be questions or comments from board members. David?
So I think you just said there towards the end of your remarks, can you just say again for the public, I think actually I know, but what other conservation lands this land abuts?
It abuts, it actually does not directly abut any conservation land. It abuts woodlands that, by a very short path that the deer love to follow, by the way, to Camp Acton, which then continues up to Spring Hill, Robbins Mill, forgotten all the, Neshoba Brook, yeah, the large area that's back there. It preserves a wildlife corridor for sure into that area.
Great, thank you. That's all.
Okay. Alyssa?
Thank you. Thank you, David and Susan, for bringing this to us and to the town. Appreciate it. The question that I had written down for you was answered in Mike Gendron's memo to the board, noting that your affiliation as two officers on the board of directors of Acton Conservation Trust was addressed by the formation of a subcommittee, and I saw that Joe Kumi, the vice president, will be signing the conservation restriction on behalf of ACT. But I just wanted to ask if you might speak a little bit more about that, because I noticed that in the document, there's language about safeguarding against personal benefit. So I think in this case, it would be great to just have a little bit more detail about that conflict of interest, if you will.
Sure. So I think that the main concern is not so much with the current process, but the future, going forward in the future, because a land trust like the Acton Conservation Trust, once they hold the conservation restriction, is charged with monitoring it and ensuring that the terms are kept. So a conflict could arise if there was some sort of an agreement that, yeah, we know you're not allowed to build a building in here, but we'll, a wink and a nod, we'll let you do that. What we did, what Joe Cooney did, was set up this separate subcommittee to consider the document and all its ramifications. And we were never a party to any of those negotiations, nor to the, obviously, to the final signing of the document. And going forward, if the CR is granted, then the trust would then be charged with annually monitoring the property to make sure that nothing violates it was done. And likewise, as the grantor, I'm sorry, I never get it straight, grantor or grantee, they would require that we notify them of anything we wanted to do that required their permission. There are a number of things that are spelled out on this. For example, if we wanted to remove a dead tree or something like that, at least let them know that we're going to be doing this. Most of the things in the CR are very clearly laid out as the things that are not permitted, things that are permitted, and there are a handful in there where the owner of the property has to contact the Conservation Trust to get permission to do it. I'm not sure if that addressed the specific point you were talking about, though, Alyssa, because I'm not sure I know which one you mean in terms of personal benefit.
So that makes it a lot more clear, but now that leads me to another question. So in the future, as the grantor or grantee,
I think we're the
Grantor.
We're the grantors. We're the grantors and act as the grantee, yeah.
Okay, so for instance, if during the monitoring process, the grantee, the act, found a violation, like too much brush that had been cleared was piled up. I know that you're not going to want to burn things or haul them off site necessarily, but just if there was a violation found, what is the process addressing that violation? Is there any vote that has to be taken that removes the two of you from that process?
It's a good point. Well, first of all, in general, this is something that the trust does all the time, monitoring the properties. And if there is a concern or a violation, then we contact the landowner. So the process would be that, in this case, someone from the trust would contact us and say, we're concerned about, your brush pile, that sort of thing. And we would seek agreement on it, basically. And in extreme cases, in general, land trusts will even have a legal defense fund if they, in fact, had to take legal action to have someone remedy something they've done improperly. We have an agreement that we would not be part of the monitoring process. I have to take that back. The owner of a property being monitored is always invited to participate in the monitoring. And we would expect to do that, but we would be recusing ourselves from any of the monitoring activity. The monitoring activity, we would just be accompanying the monitors at their request.
So you'd be removed from the enforcement?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
But,
can I ask one more question? Or
Sure.
somebody else
I
has?
also want to let you know, Alyssa, that Joe Cooney is on the line, and it might be, some of these questions might be really well addressed to him as well.
Yeah.
But why don't you go ahead and ask a question, and we'll see if Joe wants to address it.
This isn't really a question so much as a suggestion. I was wondering if the parties would be amenable to considering replacing the word character with either landscape or condition. So on page 2 and again on page 4, let's see, page 2 it says scenic and natural character of North Acton. And then on page 4 it says historic, rural, and cultural character. And I heard landscape and streetscape a couple of times in the presentation, and I'm just thinking that landscape or condition could serve as a better word than character. I know that the folks that are working on the open space and recreation plan are cognizant of trying to eliminate any exclusionary language.
Right.
So I just want to offer that as a suggestion.
Sure. What do you think? I don't.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. That's a great suggestion.
Does Joe have his hand up? He's been admitted he can unmute himself. Okay. Hey, Joe, you could unmute yourself, and you've raised your hand, so we'd like to hear from you.
Sure, I just wanted to note that the remaining members of the Board of Trustees of Acton Conservation Trust have all agreed to support this. This was done without Dave and Susan's involvement. We've all toured the property and have used a policy of what we're guided by in accepting a conservation restriction as the grantee. And this property meets all those criteria for all the reasons that you've heard. And so the remainder of the Board of Trustees is unanimously in support of accepting this CR.
Great, thanks. Any other comments or questions from the board? David?
I just wanted to let you know that Mike Gendron is now on if you wanted him to comment. Do you want me to admit him or?
Sure, yeah. Hi, Mike. We've seen your great short memo. I don't think David and Susan have, but if you wanted to summarize that for us and for the public, that would be great.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of taking a tour of the property last week, accompanied by Dave and Susan, and heard about the great history of the farm and read through some of the analysis of Tom Tidman that he wrote up a few years ago of the just the really impressive wildlife corridor that they connect to. I think a lot of people know about the expansive conservation land that we have in that section of Acton with Camp Acton and everything that Spring Hill and everything like that. So, it was a great experience to be able to check that out. And I do think that like everything I said tonight, is a parcel that can contribute to that wildlife corridor and really meets the bill of what we're trying to get at when we look at these conservation restrictions on the town and state level. So that's really all I had to say.
Thanks so much. Well, my personal comments are, I was on the board of ACT a little bit of a time ago, and just feels so right. It falls exactly in line with what the Conservation Trust is trying to accomplish. And the way that this is structured as a CR, the select board gets to put our oars in a little bit. And I'm happy to row in the same direction as everybody else here and get this land protected permanently. One question I have for us or for Joe is we have a potential motion here for approving the CR. Is the CR in its final state where it's appropriate for us to approve it, or are there any more little, T crossings and I dotting that are needed before we actually, agree to sign this thing? I guess that's a question for Joe, unless David or Susan has an answer.
Yeah, I think it's more appropriate for David and Susan to address.
Great.
So the simple answer is yes. The more complicated answer is there's one after your approval, there's the state approval. And as we've learned through this process, despite our many years of experience, there's been a lot of changes recently. This is, I think, this third version of the CR because of changing guidelines from DCR. So I'd say there's a reasonable chance that they will make comments and send it back. But with that proviso, everything there is as expected. I think if you get into the fine point, there's still some things to be done at the registry, and those are not noted yet. But other than that, I think it's completely, it's ready as far as we're concerned.
Well, that suggests to me a motion that we agree that we will sign it, and then actually sign it when it's in its super final form after going through the state. Is anybody here inclined to make a motion that's like that? Oh, great, a comment from the public, let's do that.
Colin User, you may speak.
Hi, it's Kara. Can you hear me?
Yep,
I'm so in favor of this. Thank you so much, Susan and David. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I think that I'd like to just ask the select board to spend just a moment telling the public what this is in terms of I believe they are effectively donating their development rights to the community so that property doesn't get used. They get a tax deduction, I believe, for the value of the property. And then, so they win, the community wins, we get the carbon sink from not filling it with impervious surfaces from development. I just think it's a really wonderful thing, and I hope that you just take a minute just to advertise that this is a possibility for other people to join in the fun and donate their land or put their land up for CR2. Thank you so much.
thank you, Tara. It could be that David or Susan or Joe has a very, couple sentence elevator speech about this that they'd like to give.
Yeah, I'm certainly going to defer to Joe for that because I'll go on all the rest of the night.
Hey, Joe, do you want to remind us how this awesome process works and how anyone else could participate if they have like backlands that, they'd rather not ever see developed?
Absolutely. If you've got land that has conservation value that you want to ensure is permanently protected, you're able to donate a conservation restriction. In this case, Susan and Dave are donating for no direct compensation to Acton Conservation Trust, will be the holder and monitor of the CR. A deeded restriction, which basically means that what is today a developable lot for another home tucked in behind their existing home, that gets extinguished. And instead, we preserve all of the characters that you've heard about in this particular land. And that opportunity is available throughout town for anyone who has such a conservation-minded outlook where they just want the wildlife and the residents of town and visitors to continue to enjoy an undeveloped piece of property in perpetuity.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. And I'll just add from my experience on the board that if you're a landowner considering this sort of process, it's not always a donation. There can be value exchanged for donating a CR in addition to the tax benefits. Don't stop thinking of just because you need some cash in exchange for preserving this in perpetuity. So there's both the generous donation option and the work out a fair price option, or anything in between. Thanks. David,
Mr. Chair.
Sorry, yes.
Just one point. It slipped by me. I need to check with our attorney, but the state may not review the CR unless it has signatures on it. And I think you were making it contingent on their review. If you would, I'd like to find that out, and whether this is possibly an iterative process. So obviously, if you signed a version and a DCR required changes, obviously you'd have to reapprove it. But I'd like to check that before. I'd hate to have to, cause a large delay because we need another vote on a signature.
It seems like we need a carefully crafted motion here. I'm seeing hands in both directions. David?
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, that I think that if the state makes changes, it has to come back to us anyway, because what we've signed is a different document. So I would move that the board approve the proposed conservation restriction for Spring Hill Farm, 328 Pope Road, provided that the word character is changed to the word landscape in the document.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, Alyssa.
The motion that was provided in Mike's memo also included to be held in perpetuity by Acton Conservation Trust. Do we need to specify that?
Can't hurt.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
There's a friendly amendment to add the phrase to be held by the Acton Conservation
In
Trust.
perpetuity.
In perpetuity. Fran, you okay with that as the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. The modified motion has been made and seconded, and there's still no more discussion. And now we have the clerk here because we get to call the roll because Alyssa's participating remotely. So take it away.
Okay, regarding the motion under consideration, I'll call the roll. Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault?
Aye, and thank you.
Mr. Snyder-Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Nickel?
Aye.
And Clerk Dean Charter? Aye as well.
That's unanimous. Go do the thing.
Thank you very much.
Yay. Thanks. Okay, I've got a healthy list of consent items to look at next. Like before, as usual, I'll read through them. If anyone wants to hold one of them, any board member wants to hold one of them, just make a noise, maybe use the word hold. Here we go. Consent item 6, approved meeting minutes, September 11 and 18, 2023. 7, approve a one-day alcoholic beverage license, Household Goods, 530 Main Street, October 2023.
I'd like to hold that. Number 7.
Got it? Number 8, approve a one-day alcoholic beverage license for Theater 3 at 250 Central Street, October 2021, 27, 28, 29, 2023. Number 9, approve a one-day alcoholic beverage license, Jeremy Hall, Nara Park, Bathhouse Pavilion, October 14, 2023. Number 10, appoint Leo Mercado as Constable for the Town of Acton for the purpose of posting warrants and Attorney General decisions for a term to end June 30th, 2026. Number 11, appoint Michael Harris as a full member of the Public Works Facility Building Committee with a term to end at completion and commissioning of the project. 12, appoint Robert Puffer as a full member of the Public Works Facility Building Committee with a term to end at completion and commissioning of the project. Number 13, approve request for use of town roads in Gardner Field, Kulano Group at Congregation Beth Elohim, October 15th, 2023. Number 14, approve allocation of $5,000 from the Energy Efficiency Fund to work with Beacon LLC to review project economics for additional solar energy projects under either town or third-party ownership models. And here's the new one that got added very recently, number 15. Approve a one-day alcoholic beverage license, West Acton Village Merchants Association, Gardner Field, 530 Massachusetts Avenue, October 14, 2023. Original rain date, October 7th, 2023. So let's see, we are holding number 7, so perhaps there's a motion to approve 6 and 8 through 15.
So moved.
And maybe there's a second out there.
Second?
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion on those? Hearing none, Mr. Charter, can you call the roll?
Ms. Nickel?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Snyder-Grant?
Yes.
Ms. Arsenault?
Aye.
And Dean Charter also says aye.
Great, that's unanimous. David, talk to us about number 7.
So the date on the application is just missing from the motion. So I would like to move that we approve a one-day alcoholic beverage license for Household Goods at 530 Main Street for October 18th, 2023.
Thank you for that eagle eye. Let's see, you just made a motion, didn't you? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? No? Can the clerk call the roll on that one? 17th with the October 18 added.
Ms. Nichol?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Yes?
Ms. Arsenault?
Aye.
Dean Trotter also says aye.
Great. Okay, now we can have a brief meeting eval before we go into our executive session. Meeting evaluation is things like things that we did okay that we might want to learn from and do again, or things that were a little bit awkward that we might want to learn from and not do again, or follow-up items that came up from the meeting that people want to make sure don't get lost. So let's take a special note of them now. I'll say for myself, I wish I had thought through a little bit more carefully how to do the discussion on the one about discuss committee support and volunteer recruitment. I thought it still was a great discussion, but I was a little bit at a loss about how to structure finding agreements on the parts of it. I think we managed to stumble through, but I wished I'd had a little bit more thought about it. And otherwise, I thought it was a very smooth meeting. Meeting eval comments. Alyssa, anything for you?
All good for me.
Okay, great. Okay, now I get to go through this little script with little yellow parts, and then we'll kick people out. I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property located at 549 Main Street under Open Meeting Law Purpose 6. Anyone want to make that motion? To enter into executive session to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property located at 549 Main Street.
I'll move that.
Okay, is there a second out there?
Second.
Okay, before the roll call to enter executive session, let me declare that in the executive session, the board will discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property located at 549 Main Street under Purpose 6, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect of the negotiating position of the select board. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Nichol?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Arsenault?
Aye.
Mr. Trotter also aye.
Okay, that's 4 yeses out of the 5 of us. David?
There's one person on. If the person who's attending the meeting, please leave so we can have our executive session. Otherwise, I'll have to remove you. So, Mr. Chair, they are not leaving, so I am going to remove them, if that's okay with you.
That's fine, thank you. And at the conclusion of the executive session, the board will reconvene in open session only to adjourn.